Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. I hope everyone had a great weekend out there, watched some football, maybe watch some college basketball. There's just been a lot happening right now on TV, on the internet, on Twitter. We are seeing so much happen right in front of our eyes, and this weekend did not upset at all. I am your host, Matthew Raridan, and beside me are my co-host. We have David Street,
What's up, y'all?
and we've got Ed Smith.
Welcome.
Well, like I said, guys, there was a lot of big news happening this last weekend, and one of the biggest news that happened that broke was the mega deal, the biggest that we've ever seen, and that is Shohei Ohtani to the Los Angeles Dodgers. It's almost like I called that, but I don't want to brag, but it kind of caught some people actually by surprise because we kept hearing all this talk about is he going to the Blue Jays? There's a private plane going to Toronto. He's leaving LA right now. He's got to be on that plane. Or maybe it was the rumors of his dog, this conspiracy of his dog's name is the team that he's going to. Who can it be? And all those rumors eventually were put to bed as he signed a 10-year, $700 million deal to join the Los Angeles Dodgers as they continue to choke in the postseason. What a deal. Geez, where do I sign up? So you're paying me $700 million and we're going to lose every postseason. Okay, shoot, that's fine by me. If they really wanted to fire Dave Roberts, they could have just fired him, but I guess they wanted to sign another big star just for them to choke. Then that gives them cause. But that'll happen next season, I'm sure. But they aren't done. They've made that clear, and that's what I want to talk about right now. The balance of power in MLB. It just seems like it is being tilted every single day, every single year. It is always talked about as the Yankees, the powerhouse, the 27 World Series rings. They have always just been up at the top. And then you had a team like the Dodgers that started just busting out the checkbooks. We'll sign you, and we don't care. And that's really what's been happening with this Los Angeles Dodgers team every year going into the offseason. Every MLB team knows the Dodgers are going to, try to sign someone big. They're just going to open up the checkbook. And it seems to be true. Over the last couple of years, they have gotten Mookie Betts. That was through a trade with the Red Sox. Freddie Freeman, they got him in the offseason as a free agent. And now Shohei Ohtani. And they are already being labeled as the best trio ever in MLB history between the three. And Shohei Ohtani, as you guys know, has on his second Tommy John surgery. He is a phenomenal talent. I will give him that. He on the mound as a hitter, and of course, going into this year, he is only going to be a hitter. But 700 million. Well, today news broke. 698 million he is deferring. Why is that? Could it to escape the tax? Could it to be to sign more people? Well, it's probably both. So he has deferred 698 million right now. He's only going to be taking 2 million for right now and plans to do that and will be given the payment the 2034 season when his contract is over, and he will get paid very similar to Bobby Bonilla. And end up being a pretty smart decision for him because he is getting retirement every year from the Mets. But the Dodgers, they're always going to be there. And I'm not talking about postseason. I'm talking about they're always going to be there as far as the next biggest free agent signing. They're going to be one of the top two teams to probably get them. So, and that just shows with the Shohei Ohtani, and they aren't done yet. So the balances as far as the power goes in the MLB, it's going to be where the Dodgers lie, where the checkbooks are. It has been the last several years. Does that mean they're the most dominant team in baseball? No. They don't really have much to show for in that department besides a World Series win during the COVID year, which has an asterisk next to it. It does. I mean, Dodger fans, sorry, but it's true. There is an asterisk mark next to it. And they still have yet to prove themselves in a full season. So you can sign whoever you want. You can, but you still have yet to prove yourself when it comes to that. So does the power fully lean on them? No. Maybe when it comes to signing the next big thing, but they still have yet to prove that they can win it all. In my opinion, the power lies on teams like the Astros that happen to, be there. They have proven themselves to win those games. You are looking at the Rangers right now that they have signed some big time free agents. They have gotten some in the trade deadline as well. But guess what? They won. That's something that the Dodgers haven't been able to do when they signed all these guys. So it just depends on how you look at things, on where the power lies right now as we speak. But it's just the cat is out of the bag. They have signed one of the biggest free agents of all time with the biggest contract of all time. So I can't even imagine 10 years, 700 million for anyone. I still remember till this day when Giancarlo Stanton signed a 10-year, 300 million for the New York Yankees, and he's been injured pretty much every year in that contract. But that was massive to me. And now we've seen where we're at now, 10 years, 700 million. But still want to talk about this Dodgers team here, David. I want to talk about this new and improved mighty trio of theirs and this lineup that they have. I mean, how scary does it look?
Well, it is definitely scary, Matthew, but I do just want to push back a little bit on what you said. I understand what you mean when you say, when you talk about putting an asterisk next to their 2020 title. But let's be honest, if the Giants won the title that year, you would not be singing the same song. Now, I also understand that as a Giants fan, you can talk a little because you've actually seen your team win it 3 times in full seasons. So I get it. But if your team had won in 2020, you would not be singing the same song. And to be honest, and quite frankly, I don't really have any room to criticize any COVID titles because I saw my hockey team, the Tampa Bay Lightning, win back-to-back cups in shortened seasons. So, which was great. And I often tell people who don't think there's any legitimacy to that. I tell them, if it was your team, buddy, you would not be saying the same thing. Now, about the Dodgers lineup, yes, this is going to be an insanely loaded lineup, and manager Dave Roberts will most certainly have Shohei atop the batting order. It might not happen right away. I don't know. But when the dust settles, the top four is probably going to be Shohei Ohtani, Freddie Freeman, followed by Max Muncy at third, and then Will Smith at fourth, right? So last year, the Dodgers were second in MLB in home runs, and they were also second in runs scored. Two teams had scored 900 runs: the Dodgers and the Braves. And I'm going to make a couple bold predictions here. Okay, one of which I do feel pretty confident in. The other, I acknowledge, might backfire on me, but I'm going to make it anyway. My first bold prediction is that the Dodgers in the upcoming 2024 season are going to score 1,000 runs on the season. It hasn't happened a lot lately. In fact, only one team has been able to score 1,000 runs in a 162 game format, and that was the 1999 Cleveland Indians. So technically, it's not impossible, but it hasn't happened yet. But I feel like more and more we're seeing teams just score 900 runs, and with the lineup that the Dodgers have, I feel pretty confident that they can reach 1,000 runs, and possibly more than that. My next bold prediction, and this is one where I acknowledge that it's probably not going to happen, and this is probably going to backfire on me. But hell, I predict that the Dodgers are going to break the MLB single season win record with 117. It's never happened before. The most wins in a season is 116, which was achieved by the Mariners in 2001, and then the the Cubs back in the 1900s, and that was of course when we had, I think it was a 152 game season. Now keep in mind The Dodgers did win 111 games in 2022. They were the first team to win at least 110 games since the 2001 Mariners. Okay, so I think it could be done. And this lineup that they have right now, you could argue, is better than the one that they had in 2022, which I know is easy to say since they have Otani. But yeah, like I said, I think they're going to score 1,000 runs. I feel pretty confident on that, and I think they're going to win 117 games. But Ed, what do you think?
I think that they are going to score a lot of runs, especially with the rule changes that increased offensive production over last season, which the number of runs scored actually went up by about a run and a half from 2022 to 2023. So it's not that far fetched to think that they will score that many runs, but that is expecting them to score somewhere in the vicinity of 6 to 7 runs a game over a 162 game season. So that is a lot. Uh, and it's just a matter of will the rotation be able to keep up with that? So that's what I'm looking for in that is it's great to score all these runs, but if you can't get anybody out, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. And there's the old adage in baseball: good pitching beats good hitting beats good pitching. So obviously we know where the Dodgers stand on that particular aspect of it. Kershaw's not getting any younger, and the rest of that staff has always been kind of a mixed bag of pitchers that are hitting at the right time, but not always doing it at the right time. And part of that, in my opinion, is Dave Roberts. He overmanages so severely in the playoffs that it just constricts everybody, and they can't feel loose like they can do more stuff. To Matthew, I what I saw is 680 is going to be deferred. It's 2 million per year that he's going to get over the 10 years um, with the deferment of the rest of the contract over that time period, which in that deferment is somewhere in the vicinity of $75 million per year. During that 9 year stretch. So I did the math on that. Now, why would the Dodgers make this deal? It seems insane for an organization to put up that much money for player. One player that is going to, in essence, be receiving more than an entire organization's worth of payroll, by himself. But when you're talking about the Guggenheim Baseball Partnership that bought the Dodgers, that's where this open checkbook comes from. That's when they started doing this let's buy up everything, that the basically go to the old Yankees formula and play that way. But since 2017, when they went to the World Series against the Astros, we won't talk about that whole deal, but you're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons, full seasons, where they win 100 or more games and then lose in the playoffs. You know, for us being football guys, that's kind of like the whole Nick Saban problem. It is, you know, if he goes to the SEC championship game, wins that, and then loses in the playoff every single year, there's going to be basically hell in the streets.
Pitchfork.
For that. So that's why they make this move. They feel like they need that one extra guy to get themselves over the hump and have a full season World Series championship, not just a COVID season. Nobody's doubting that the COVID season was invalid, or anything like that. It was certainly valid, but they want a full season so they can put those conversations to rest. Now, the other half of this is the culture that Ohtani brings to the Dodgers, which has been sitting 40 miles away across town, in Anaheim up to this point. we're talking marketing opportunities and Otani mania, that type of thing. The international appeal that he has going back to Japan and the Pacific Rim, bringing that interest and marketing and, let's be honest, dollars to the Dodgers, you know, that makes this deal a bargain for them. Their first game with Otani at home is expected to have an average ticket price of $135 per ticket. That is insane. They're going to make $19 million on the first game that he is on the mound. And that's just tickets. Never mind the concessions, the merchandising, the promotions that are in the stadium, because they do promotions there all over the field. So those are some of the reasons why they do this deal. And Matthew, you're exactly right. It is very much like the Bobby Bonilla idea, where you're deferring all that money, so it's not going to affect against the salary tax, which is going to be at $239 million threshold this year. Uh, when you get over that threshold, you're taking that $239 million and it's 20% tax on that back to the league. It's competitive balance tax. It's not a payroll tax. It's not a you shouldn't do that. You should not cut out these other teams tax. It is a competitive balance tax, and that's where that comes from. But the fact that they were able to work it out for Otani to, take that little bit, he wants to win. He wants to win now, and he wants to win often. That's why you do this on Otani's side. You're going to get your money, but you want to be able to win while you're in the major leagues and not sit in the same ballpark with one of the other great baseball players of this generation and do nothing over a 162 game season. I mean, are y'all seeing that the same way as I am?
Well, let me just add on to one of the points that you made, that yes, giving all that money to one player does seem insane. And I'm not saying that I necessarily agree with giving him that much, but let me tell you, in my almost 30 years of watching baseball, there's been only a handful of players that I've seen that deserve that kind of money. And Otani is one of those players. He is an extremely rare talent, and certainly in my lifetime, in Matthew and I's lifetime, since we're both the same age, we have never seen a player of this caliber before.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like a double-edged sword. I mean, you're looking at a unicorn there with Otani being able to dominate not only from the mound but from the plate as well. That's just something you don't see. I mean, we all know we never even lived in his lifetime. We always hear about Babe Ruth this, Babe Ruth that, rightfully so, for what he did on the mound and behind the plate. That's just how much his legend carries. Same thing with Otani, but yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you brought up the point, Ed, with how much money they're going to make just in his first game there. I mean, this contract going to be paid off. I mean, for the Dodgers before you know it, because of how much money they're going to be making off of it. So, financial wise, they probably knew all this, so that's why they made that decision. But really quick, David, remind me that '99 Indians team, was that with Ricky Vaughn and Willie Mays Hayes?
I
That was
think so.
88.
Ah,
Yeah.
88, man. I
I
always
mean, I'm
get
not.
so confused.
I don't consider myself to be a baseball historian. I know Ed is somewhat, so I'll definitely defer to him for that.
Yeah, I
We're
mean,
talking Manny Ramirez, Jim Tomei, Omar Vizquel,
oh my
Yeah,
Carlos
god.
Baerga.
Yeah. Omar Vizquel, I mean, he was mainly known for his defense. He was my favorite shortstop to this day. So, but
well, and that's the thing too, that the Indians scored a boatload of runs that year. But if memory serves me correctly, which I don't know why I'm saying that, I would have only been five at the time. But you get my point. The point I'm trying to say is that they scored a lot of runs, but I'm pretty sure they also allowed a ton of runs too, which kind of alludes to the point you were making, Ed.
Yeah, and I definitely saw that in the '95 World Series, where the Indians, that whole stretch through the '90s, it was score more runs than the other team.
Mhm.
It didn't matter if the pitchers could only get some of the outs. As long as you're outscoring them, it doesn't matter.
Sounds like a Pac-12 game. But speaking of
Yeah.
football, we had a great football weekend on Sunday, but it did not come without controversy, and we saw that in full effect in this Kansas City Chiefs versus Buffalo Bills games. I mean, these are two teams that needed to win. The Bills have had just a kind of mediocre year this year because it wasn't expected to be like this. They needed a win, but they were going into Arrowhead, which is not a tough place or not an easy place to play. It is very tough, very loud. And the Chiefs, I mean, they are, even though they're close to the top of the AFC, they still needed a win. They have not looked the same this year like the Chiefs that we're used to seeing. And you might have expected, well, this is going to be, such a shootout. We're going to have a high scoring game. No, it was 20-17. That was the final score with the Bills winning 20-17. But man, guys, there was some controversy here towards the end. If you guys don't know, with a minute 12 left, Kansas City Chiefs scored a touchdown for it to be called back due to an offsides by the offense, which you rarely see. And this was big because the Bills just got a field goal, just went ahead. And the Chiefs, well, they do what the Chiefs do best. They show up. They drove the ball down. They do what they do best. Mahomes has been doing it pretty much his whole career. And you had a big play to Travis Kelce, who decided to put Showtime on and lateral the ball to Kadarius Toney for a touchdown. And then, yes, there was the flag, the infamous flag of Kadarius Toney himself lining up offsides. And it's very similar to, if you guys remember, is this dress blue or is it gold? It was, the internet was set on fire of, was he offsides or was he not? And if for you, those of you out there who don't know, when you're a wide receiver, you do go and if you're lining up on the line of scrimmage, you do check with the side judge. Am I lined up? Am I onside, offside? And there is video that has came out of him briefly doing that. All he did was stick his finger out towards the ref and then turned his head back. He did not acknowledge the ref really. And if maybe he stood there, looked long enough, maybe the ref would have acknowledged and said, no, you're offsides, buddy. But that did not happen. And yes, he ended up being offsides. They called it. The play did go on. It's not like a false start where they call it dead. It was an offside, so they kept it going. And Chiefs were all excited until they found out the flag was on them. So this was a major blow because the Chiefs did end up giving up the ball on downs and they lost the game. So I really want to hear your guys' reactions on this. I mean, as far as you feel if he was offsides or not, and I mean, did the rest do the right call? So I'll start with you, Ed.
Well, I did see a stat, after the game that NFL officiating has called offsides on the offense 11 times this year versus 2 last year. So the official's office recognizes that it has become a problem over the years of receivers just either ignoring the side judge or just trying to get that extra step, that extra little nudge, just a little bit further. And this was blatant. I don't think I saw anybody anywhere today, you know, even remotely call it controversial that he was offside. When you go back and look at the film, you cannot see the ball because his calf is in the way. That is way offside. So I don't think there's any issue there. But Kadarius, come on, man. You're an NFL receiver. You need to check where you're at. You need to make sure that you're good for your team and do it right. That negated one of the best, you know, lateral plays I've seen in a while. Travis Kelce, he's a Hall of Fame tight end. That lateral was beautiful. It was a straight pass over to Tony, who, by the way, was just kind of standing there after Travis had caught the ball and it was going downfield. He was just like, okay, my part of the play's done. No big deal.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, The ball's coming to him.
Got
Oh,
you.
I better catch this. And then runs for the touchdown. And then it gets called back. It's just ridiculous. But I do have some other thoughts. That is 2 games, at least, that the Chiefs have lost this year because of the wide receiving core. MVS a couple of weeks ago on the Monday night game that he just the ball through his hands, sliding into the end zone, and then this. That would have put the Chiefs tied for the league lead in wins in the AFC, which in turn, that's going to cost them home field. That's going to cost them the ability to, harness that home field advantage, you know, through the crowd noise that Arrowhead has because it's one of the best in any open air stadium in the country. So that's where that goes. But David, I don't mean to steal all your thunder there.
Well, first off, I do not understand why there is even a debate about the call when Kadarius Toney was clear as day offside. Clear as day. It was extremely blatant. Like I don't even know why. I don't even know why why people are discussing this. And then you talk about Patrick Mahomes not even having any class to congratulate Josh Allen. He says, worst effing offensive call I've ever seen. Offside, you gotta be kidding me. Shut the hell up, you insufferable sore loser prick. Because let me tell you, I have lost a ton of respect for Patrick Mahomes. Like, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have received way more calls. Um, they've received a ton of calls their way. Probably the most we've seen since Tom Brady and the Patriots. And now that something finally doesn't go their way, which by the way was the correct call, because like I said, it was offside. Now you want to cry about it? Like, shut the hell up, all right? And now I am more glad than ever that my Bucks kicked that prick's ass in the Super Bowl because he is just like he is driving me crazy with how much with how insufferable he's been lately.
Yeah, the Chiefs, they are turning, if not already turned, into the New England Patriots. Everyone hated the New England Patriots. They were always winning. Tom Brady was always crying. Shoot, how many rules have they made because of Tom Brady? From the tuck rule to tackling too low. I mean, everyone hated him. They hated the Patriots. Well, it's starting to happen with the Chiefs right in front of our eyes. That is, I mean, especially with that. And then really what gets me is I love Andy Reid. I think he's a phenomenal coach, Hall of Famer. He has proven himself to be among the elites. And even afterwards, after the game, about 10 minutes or so, I mean, even going to the press conference and still feeling like the refs were in the wrong, the Chiefs got screwed. And it's like, you know how many times you've had to have probably seen a replay by then or be informed by your guys that, yeah, he was offsides, and you still go up there. I get defending your team, okay, but you were clearly in the wrong. You were clearly offsides, and it's time to move on, or at least time to admit it. But no, he wanted to hold on to that so much, and it's like, well, it was kind of pointless.
Right.
It was called because it should have been called.
Mm-hmm.
And listen, I do feel a little bad for what I'm about to say because I think Andy Reid is a good man, but it's like you're the head coach, you idiot. Like, do you not know what offsides is? Did you not see? Like, I agree with you, Matthew. I understand defending your players, but the dude was offside. It was clear as day. Like, I don't know why you're even arguing it. It just
Well,
uh
and
Ed, you better stop me before I go off the rails here.
One of the things I find interesting is how Patrick Mahomes is almost in that class of quarterback that you cannot say anything negative about. Just because he's on every other commercial and he's likable and he's a nice guy and he's on the Netflix quarterback series and all these things that have endeared himself to as the next you know, top end quarterback, the next Tom Brady, if you will. No, I'm not saying he's the next Tom Brady. I'm saying as far as how people perceive him as he's the guy. He's the guy that nobody can talk about in a negative light. that was some of the most petulant child tantrum making, conversation that I've seen from a quarterback in a long time, because I, it's weird to say that from somebody that has done such good work, uh, being an ambassador for the game of football, which, let's be honest, the NFL kind of needs right now, but that's a different topic for a much longer discussion. Uh, but to have him throw such a temper tantrum on the field to the refs, to his own wide receivers, to the opposing quarterback in the handshake, and then get on the podium and then throw his wide receiver under the bus. I mean, did he get the license plate of that thing? That was horrific. That is not how a quarterback acts. You know, be an adult, be a grown up, move on, and then figure out what you need to do to make it better. I mean, the fact that he's got such a lower level receiving core compared to what he's used to having, it makes me wonder if at some point he's just going to go off about, you know, not having anybody to throw to other than Kelsey, because they need those pieces to help loosen up the coverage for him to do his job.
Well,
Yes.
and it's interesting that you mentioned that, Ed, because last year there was a hoopla about, oh, the Chiefs don't have Tyreek Hill. They're going to miss Tyreek Hill. And then they just, no biggie. They just went on to win the Super Bowl. Well, now we're singing
Yeah.
a different tune this year.
Yeah, we are seeing a different tune, and we're actually seeing a change at the top of the AFC. And there is a new team and a healthy new team. I mean, besides some of the obvious early injuries that they had, but a healthy quarterback. And that is the Baltimore Ravens. And they had a very, very thrilling and much needed overtime victory yesterday. And David, you kind of want to talk to us about that victory and how big it was for the Ravens?
Well, that was certainly a thrilling game. What wasn't it? A thrilling game that went into overtime. And what it, I can't think of a better way to end a game like that than with Tylen Wallace's 76-yard punt return. And what's really crazy to me about that is the fact that he was running parallel to the sideline. So like he could have easily gotten pushed out of bounds, but that didn't happen because the Ravens during that sequence put on a blocking clinic. Especially, I couldn't help but notice. I believe it was a Daryl Worley on the Ravens just completely owning Trey Tomlinson of the Rams with a massive block, and it was because of his effort and everybody else on the Ravens too, but especially Worley that Wallace was able to take it to the house. So just a great game overall. You look at the Ravens; they're atop the AFC North, and they pretty much have that division locked up. I don't think anybody else is going to catch them. And then as far as the Rams go, they're not out of the playoff hunt yet. They're not out of the playoff race yet. They do have a relatively easy schedule the rest of the way until they play the 49ers in their season finale. So they're not out of it yet, but they better take advantage of the upcoming easy schedule they're about to face, again, with the exception of the 49ers in their season finale.
Yeah, that's not gonna be an easy game. I mean, the Niners are they are at the top, and it's kind of what I want to talk about. We have the teams right now that are kind of slowly but surely separating themselves as they continue to rise. That is the Niners. That is the Ravens. But we are seeing some also kind of on the descent right now. Doesn't necessarily mean their seasons are over, but one of the teams that is kind of on a descent right now is the Philadelphia Eagles. They yesterday against the Cowboys, they lost 33-13. And they just didn't look comfortable out there at all. I mean, you're looking at a team that for a while was at the top of the NFL. They only had one loss, but over the last couple weeks, that has changed. Momentum for them has changed. And Whereas the Cowboys, momentum for them is starting to look really good. Granted, this was the Cowboys' first win of the year against a winning opponent, so that needs to be noted. But against a division rival like the Eagles, that is very sweet. That is a sweet feeling for the Cowboys. Um, their fans are going to be, as obnoxious as ever because of it, just as if they won the Super Bowl. But let's be real, the Cowboys did look really good yesterday, and you hear on the media, well, give Dak credit or Dak Prescott his credit. Let's talk about CeeDee Lamb, and yeah, CeeDee Lamb, great. Dak Prescott has been looking great too. I will give him that, but there's someone else that I really feel needs to get credit where it is due, and that is their kicker, Brandon Aubrey. Guys, he is setting records left and right. This is a rookie we're talking about, and he has now hit 30 kicks in a row to start off his career. That is already a record itself. But he got two more records last night also, and they're little records, so they're not going to be talked about as much, and it's a kicker. I mean, Justin Tucker is probably one of the most dominant kickers of all time, and, well, he doesn't even get talked about that much either. But I want to talk about Brandon Aubrey here. So the two records that he set last night was he is the first ever NFL kicker to hit two field goals of 59 yards or more in the same game. And as I just talked about, Justin Tucker, surprising, he hasn't hit that record ever. I mean, that guy's Mr. Automatic. Shoot, I'm putting him in if it's a 65-yarder, but he has not hit that record. And then another record which he set last night was he ended up with an average of 53.5 yards a field goal, which sets a record for the longest average with a minimum of 4 attempts in a game. And he had 4 attempts exactly and hit all 4 with a 60, a 59, a 45, and a 50-yard field goal. So, I mean, this guy is the new Justin Tucker. He is automatic. And in that 60-yarder he hit, if you looked at it, it was good for 68 yards. And he truly believes he could hit it from 70 if given the opportunity. I mean, this guy played collegiate soccer for Notre Dame and was in the MLS. This guy has a leg. He is the new Legatron, if you want to call him. I mean, that's just how good he is. But he outscored the Eagles himself. If you count his 4 field goal, which is 12 points, and he hit all 3 of his extra points, that's 15 points right there. Their kicker alone outscored the entire Eagles team. That's embarrassing. So this Eagles team needs to regroup, which they will. They are not out of it at all. They are still the Eagles. They still only have 3 losses, but they are trending in the wrong direction, whereas the Cowboys are trending in the right direction.
I want to
Mhm.
say real quick, if I could, uh, the Eagles are coming off of a horrific stretch of opponents uh, in their schedule. The NFL schedule makers did not do them any favors whatsoever. I mean, they wound up playing the Bills at home to a almost full fifth quarter, uh, full overtime game. You know, and then has San Francisco come to town, who was on 10 days rest, by the way, because they were on the Thanksgiving night game, and then they traveled to Dallas for Dallas that was also on a 10-day rest. While that defense that Philadelphia is, lauding around as one of these dominant defenses that they can have, the Bulldogs, the Philadelphia Bulldogs, as we keep calling them, they have been on the field more than, I want to say, 250 plays over the past 3 weeks. That is an insane amount of plays to try and mitigate the rest, the intensity, and keeping up with a team that has really found its stride in the game planning that they've done on offense in Dallas right now.
Yeah, and also um I'll take this moment to eat a little bit of crow because in a previous episode I ripped on the Cowboys for only beating garbage teams, and I don't think anybody is going to accuse the Eagles of being a garbage team. So give credit where credit is due. But also just a couple of things about the Eagles. Like they got blown out by the Cowboys by 20 points. And then let's also not forget that they also, their previous game got blown out by the 49ers by, what was it? I think it was 23 points. So that's back to back blowout losses by 20 or more points. But it's also
Mhm.
not that surprising because I've talked about it multiple times on the show. The Eagles have been barely winning their games. They've only won a couple, maybe a few games by double digits, but the vast majority of their wins have been by single digits. And I'm not saying the sky is falling for Philadelphia right now, but right now, things aren't looking good. I mean, you get blown out once, that's one thing. But to get blown out like that in back-to-back games tells me that there needs to be serious conversations within that locker room.
Yeah, we talk about the skies falling, and right now, Houston Texan fans are kind of feeling that a little bit because of injuries that are plaguing their team. But of course, one specific is CJ Stroud. Do you have an update, Ed, on CJ Stroud and his concussion?
Well, during the Jets game yesterday, while the sky was literally falling on the entire game, uh, I mean it was a driving rainstorm. The Jets did to C.J. Stroud what had not been done to him through years of college and his first half of his first season in the NFL. They pretty much shut him down. Now, granted, his weapons, he was down to his fourth best uh, pass catcher, so he didn't have uh, that explosive offensive output that we have come to be used to from CJ Stroud over the first over these first few games that he's been playing. But in the third quarter, he was slammed to the ground after a pass and hit his head horrifically hard on that turf at uh, at Global Life Stadium. Is that the one in the
MetLife
Meadowlands? MetLife
is on,
Stadium.
yeah,
Yeah,
MetLife.
MetLife Stadium, and they, you know, he immediately kind of rolled over. He was out. There was no denying. He had no idea where he was. So he is in concussion protocol, and there was a press conference this afternoon that basically reiterated what we all knew, that CJ Stroud is in concussion protocol and will continue to be so until he passes the 5 phases of concussion protocol. Because the first thing we want to do is we want to protect these players' livelihoods and their lives going forward. So we want to make sure that he's doing well before we move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's had a phenomenal year, but and they are in the midst of a playoff run, but his health does come first. I mean, especially if the Texans want to see him continue to be a Texan for the rest of his career. But it wasn't just football this weekend. It wasn't just Shohei Ohtani free agent news. We had an NBA in-season tournament champion this last weekend, and David, I mean, tell me about it.
Well, the NBA in-season tournament apparently averaged 1.5 million viewers on ESPN and TNT through the semifinals. I don't have the numbers from the championship game because I, for the life of me, cannot find that number, and I don't know why. But I'm pretty sure it was a lot. And listen, you talk about the in-season. In-season tournament, and I mean it was nice that the players seem to love it, but it has no effect on the playoffs at all. At least not directly. It does have an effect indirectly in that for much of the tournament, the wins do count toward the regular season. Now I have not really followed the NBA in season tournament that much, especially since the Magic, which is my NBA team, got eliminated. So I pretty much stopped caring after that. But let me tell you something. When I saw that that the Lakers are apparently going to hang a banner for their in-season tournament win, I thought, is this a joke? Like, this is so freaking pathetic. Like, you're going to hang a banner for a freaking glorified regular season tournament, which, by the way, like I said, has no direct effect on the playoffs whatsoever. Now, I don't think the Lakers are going to miss the playoffs, but if they do, it's going to make this whole thing even more hilarious, like even more pathetic. Like, if the Lakers make the playoffs, do you think the players are going to think to themselves, well, at least we still have our in-season tournament win? No, hell no. And I think it's embarrassing that they're even celebrating this like they won the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I find interesting is all these players talk about, oh, we have so many games and we have to worry about rest and rest this and rest that. And okay, so now you throw in this in-season tournament. So on top of 82 games, you're
That
going
is
to
such
have
a good point that I never thought about.
pool play and then knockout stages. I mean, that's kind of that sounds to me a lot like MLS type stuff. But,
Yeah.
but I digress.
And by the way, this is not even to mention that pretty much all of the courts, the colorful courts, I can't talk tonight. They were a pain on the eyes. In fact, I think pretty much the only team with a decent in-season tournament court was the Orlando Magic, but every other court was just so painful to look at.
Yeah, it just shows me that a regular season, the NBA is hurting for viewers, and they're trying to do whatever they can to scrap and get those viewers. So uh, it did add an excitement element, and I saw that. But the whole banner thing, I mean, give me a break. That is just it's just hilarious to me. But also over the weekend we had UFC Fight Night 233. And these UFC Fight Nights, they really are intriguing because you are seeing guys that are really fighting to up their rankings. And we saw that in the main event with Song Yadong, who defeated Chris Gutierrez in the bantamweight division. And this was big because you had a number 6 ranked bantamweight in Yadong, and this win really propelled him. And the bantamweight division right now is really stacked with fights happening amongst the top of the division. I mean, Henry Cejudo just got announced to fight coming up here against Davashali, who is one of the best bantamweights. But Yadong, after the fight, called out Piotr Yang, who is a former champ in the division, and it sounds like they are going to have this fight. It is a much anticipated fight. It is an exciting fight, and Piotr Yang, guys, he thought about hanging up his gloves this last year, so things weren't looking the best for him, and he was thinking about just retiring. And he is an amazing fighter. So for him to really acknowledge and accept this fight will be big for that division. And then also in the co-main event, we saw Khalil Roundtree knock out Anthony Smith. And this was very big for Roundtree, who is on a 5-fight win streak in the light heavyweight division. So this surely will propel him into the top 10 of the light heavyweight division. But later this week, we're going to talk about UFC 296. That is happening this Saturday. So once again, Saturdays, it is where action is. It's going to be happening again this weekend for the last pay-per-view of the year. But there was also another championship, though, this week. And we had the in-season tournament championship. That doesn't really count, but we had one that did count. That is the MLS Cup. And Ed's going to kind of talk us through the championship game.
Yeah. So not only is Saturday a great night for fighting, a great night for basketball, it was the christening of Jaden Daniels as the Heisman winner for this season. The MLS Cup took place, on which Columbus beat the defending champion LAFC uh, by a score of 2-1 in the title game. Now, that if you're just looking at a stat line, that could tell you maybe all you want to know about it. But there was some controversy during the game as well. In fact, the opening score for Columbus was on a penalty kick on a controversial handball in the 33rd minute. So it was one that was so very close that they did go to the replay and
VAR.
and saw saw that the ball uh, hit the defender's chest and then went handball. It was such a minute difference between being a handball and not being a handball that there was a lot of controversy that was talked about quite literally through the match. So after that, Columbus really solidified their lead by getting another goal at, just 4 minutes later, with an assist from Malte Munson. And it was a beautiful uh, entry ball into the penalty area, with the winger coming into the midfield. Yeboah. Sorry, I'm just reading that name. Yeboah coming into the midfield and just beating the goalie. No, just without question. Now, LAFC did make it back into the game with the goal in the 74th minute, but overall, this game was all Columbus all the time. They held possession 61.5% of the time. Uh, they had uh, they had 9 corners versus LAFC's 1. I mean, it was just complete domination from beginning to end, and they truly uh, proved themselves to be the champion of the MLS Cup in this final.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
just I wanted to ask a question
Sure.
real quick, regarding the call that was made. Now first of all, I just want to say that I didn't watch the game. I just didn't really have any interest in it. But what you said kind of reminds me of a thought that I've had before, and that when it comes to close calls, I've always believed that I don't mind a close call being made when the game itself is close and it could go, either or. But the only time where I would disagree with a close call being made, even if it even if it is the correct call, is if the game is so out of hand and the losing team just doesn't have a chance in hell. But if it's a close game, if it's a tie at that point, which Ed, it sounds like it was, then I really don't see the problem at all with a call being made, especially if it ended up being the correct call. I mean, did it end up being the correct call, Ed?
In my opinion, it was a correct call because you could clearly see the deflection from chest to arm
Mhm.
off the defender in the penalty area.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. But what do you think, Matthew? I mean, like I said, I don't. If it's a blowout, then yeah, don't make those calls because the other team doesn't stand a chance. But what do you think?
Well, NFL fans will remember the infamous year that the NFL adopted. Let's review pass interference calls. Let's challenge that. There's a reason why it only lasted a year, but this is very similar to how VAR is right now in soccer. It has become big controversy. I mean, the last several years because of it. There's been times where it seems clear as day. We are seeing with the naked eye. We are watching the replays as fans, and we're seeing it clearly not happen or clearly something did happen, and they still don't rule it that way. There has been many times just how it was in the NFL when they were challenging pass interference calls. But yeah, with a call like this, in a game like this, I fully support that, and it needed to happen because with the replay being done, the correct call was made. But with it being a championship game like this, there's going to be controversy regardless. Even if they didn't call it, there was controversy, and they called it, there's still controversy. But at the end of the day, refs, they do have a tough job out there when it's happening live, when it's happening at game speed. It is very hard to see things, and that's the NFL, that's soccer. I mean, you're seeing it in every sport. So replays have helped benefit them a lot because as fans, we see 100 different replays from 100 different angles of the play happening. Where they're only seeing it live. So props to them for at least making the call on the field and making it right. So it's going to be tough regardless, but props to them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, we saw like we talked about before with the Kadarius Tony thing. That's not a call that they can not make. He's obviously offside. So the official does not play for either one of the teams. They are there to make sure that it is done correctly and to the book,
Mhm.
so that way it's fair for both sides. It's
And
not it's not to lean one way or the other because it's a likable player on one team versus I that guy talked bad about me on the other team. No, that's not how that goes.
and also, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Chiefs greatly benefit from a controversial call in the Super Bowl against the Eagles?
He was the Niners. Oh, maybe.
No, that was no. He's talking about the pass interference that was not called when it should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So,
but
and
I, to me, on that particular play, it shouldn't have been called. It was kind of ticky tack, so it shouldn't have been a thing anyway.
yeah.
fair enough.
We at the end of the day, we are spoiled as fans. We are, because we are able to see a lot more than the refs can see. At least while we're watching the game live, and also at the same time, we could sit here and easily, talk crap about the refs too. So it's true. I mean, I've seen calls against the Steelers this year. That is my pro team. And I'm just like, man, these refs suck. But their job is not easy by any means, but as sport fans, we're spoiled, and I don't say that in a necessarily a bad way, but we are spoiled being able to watch and ref the game from our own couches. So, but that is about all we have today, folks. So if you could please hit that like, that subscribe button, share these videos, also comment on your opinions. I mean, I expect pretty much everyone to probably agree that it was offsides. I mean, it was clear as day, but let us know your thoughts on that. Let us know your thoughts on the Heisman. As Ed announced, Jaden Daniels did win the 2023 Heisman. Not really a shocker, but let us know your thoughts on that. Let us know your thoughts on everything that's happening in the NFL, the MLB, the big, massive contracts. But we like to hear what you guys have to say. But thank you for your support. We really appreciate it, guys. But until next time, guys, we are rounding third and we are headed for home.